Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hybrid Major Glitches daily race here on Speed Gaming for you today. We should be getting started in just a moment. My name is Krellbell. I'll be handling commentary for you today, and handling tracking today is Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna. So, our race today is between two veterans of this format, Zeke Highwind on the right and Mr. Beyer on the left. Yeah, we should get this show started in just a few seconds. So, yeah, this is a hybrid major glitches race. I should take the moment as we're just about to get started to explain what hybrid major glitches is. It's the goal is 7 crystals and defeat Ganon. So we'll also see an Aghanim 2 kill. And most of what you'll see in the early parts of this race will be similar to a normal overworld glitches race. As you can see, both runners getting started at Link's house. You'll often see runners go over to a Hylia Island to check. Looks like Zeke is taking a bit of an unusual route, but one I know he's personally fond of, the very early Hyrule Castle check, as Mr. Beyer takes slightly more usual to the overworld glitches format, the early hobo check. So we'll see if Zeke finds anything here that pays off. It's not a huge time investment, and if you find something here like the mirror, then that could take Mr. Beyer a very long time to make his way back to. So far, doesn't find anything. Mr. Beyer continues on to Sanctuary, so he'll probably be the first person. Oh, interesting. The flippers there. Well, that makes that hobo check a little bit easier for Zeke if he decides to check here before going to hobo, as we see he has. And I don't believe he found much in the early Hyrule Castle check, but didn't fall too far behind, based on that check. Oh, we have a early glove in Bonk Rocks, which it looks like Zeke is walking past. Hopefully he remembers to go back there at some point. And so Zeke giving us a nice red rupee on crabs, little early money that he'll have going into there, and a sword. Very nice. Oh, 300 rupees we probably won't be seeing on Lumberjack. In the overworld glitches and hybrid major glitches formats, there are very few times basically almost never will you ever see runners required to kill Aghanim unless something absolutely required is found on the Lumberjack item. But in hybrid major glitches, there are fewer items required for Go mode than you may be used to seeing. Couple questions from chat. We have the faster question to answer, which is about why runners have starting boots in this format, and the reason for that is a lot of the techniques, like the one you're about to see from Mr. Beyer, where he just sneaks into the diagonal ledge there, to the point where the game's collision gets confused, and he's able to get ejected from the wall to sneak up to the top of Death Mountain. Technique known as Lumberjack DMA, or Lumberjack Death Mountain Ascent. So a lot of those techniques are either impossible or much more difficult and slower without the boots. And so that's kind of why the standard for glitch racing is with starting boots, because without starting boots, it's the races often turn into who finds the boots first. And with regards to what does hybrid major glitches mean, Mr. Beyer just demonstrated the first example of something that can only occur in that can't occur in normal overworld glitches or normal seeds. That is, he opened up the first two chests in Tower of Hera and did not find I believe he did not find the big or small key, which means the question becomes, well, how are you expected to complete Hera? Is Hera pot logic? And it isn't. Herapod isn't in logic in this mode. The logic in this mode, and given this item layout with no keys in the front of Hera, unless I saw incorrectly, with no keys in the front of Hera, the logic will expect you to clip from Mire, from the room right before the cutscene, or 2 rooms before the cutscene chest in Mire, to just sneak through the wall there into the top of Hera, and that will be your access, your logically required access to the top of Hera. And similarly, it can require you to clip from the top of Hera to Swamp Palace. So Hera and Swamp and Misery Mire all turn into this sort of mega dungeon of you're still required to complete all crystals and all bosses containing crystals, but adding those things to the logic just enables all sorts of very, very creative and interesting new routing situations, and hopefully in this seed we'll get to see some of them. So Zeke finished up his Kakariko clear, found a mushroom, which could have enabled an early magic bat check in overworld glitches. You can kind of sneak over to the magic bat drop down without needing the mirror or hammer. Without the powder or cane, that wasn't in the cards. Meanwhile, Mr. Byer taking his glove that he got from the bonk rocks that Zeke skipped, and hopefully will make his way back to. Taking this to the back of Hyrule Castle, see if he finds anything. The small key, and the powder, okay. So when Mr. Byer makes his way into Kakariko, he'll have the option to, and we'll probably see him do this, he'll have the option to check the magic bat item that Zeke couldn't check when he was there. And you notice that he didn't check the Dark Cross item when he was in the back of Escape. Something that you'd often see non-glitch players do in that situation, but he chose not to, and that's because in hybrid major glitches there is an obscure but not entirely unheard of situation where you could be required, or you couldn't be required to, but it could be very, very advantageous to use that Hyrule Castle small key in Swamp Palace, which is a very fun little route. It's very uncommon, but you'll often see runners save that Hyrule Castle small key just in case, to kind of give them the option of doing that later on. It's like Zeke didn't find too much in Desert Palace as Mr. Byer goes and is doing another overworld glitch's standard move of just sneaking into King's Tomb. Turns out if you get most of the King's Tomb hammer, that's exciting. So Mr. Byer won't need to do the wrap to get into Magic Bat without the hammer because he just found it there. That is that location, the King's Tomb location, is kind of a one-off. It's fairly common to see runners postpone that for a pretty long time. So that could be a pretty big early find for Mr. Byer there. As Zeke does another down teleport, as you've seen a few of them now. It's the same technique, just applied in different places where you're using you're activating the boots and movement on the same frame to clip into walls further than the game expects you to be, to confuse the game's collision, to eject you either very far downwards or upwards, depending on where you stop that movement. And as you can see, it's very, very useful for routing. This is an interesting divergence between our two runners so far. Zeke took the early Kakariko clear, and Mr. Beyer is choosing to postpone his trip into Kakariko. If he's able to find a bottle, then he would be able to fully clear Kakariko on the first trip through. Oh, here's our map check. I think that's blue in desert and red crystal in eastern, if I saw correctly, which almost never matters in glitch modes. If we find the mirror, then we can use a mirror offset portal to just get into the Pyramid Fairy checks without needing the red crystals, and even without needing the Moon Pearl. So that can be a fun place for the Moon Pearl to show up. Unfortunately for Zeke, he did remember to go back to Bonk Rocks, picked up those gloves. Yeah, gloves don't give you quite as much in this mode as they do in non-glitched, but they're still required for... in this mode, they're still required for Ice Palace. There are ways past the gloves checks in Ice Palace, but those are reserved for no logic racing. Zeke showing us how, in this mode with the starting boots and the ability to very easily get into the old man cave, you don't need any items for it. So learning how to navigate that dark room with only the boots dust is a pretty useful skill. And Zora had nothing for us. We're choosing to pick up those bombs anyway. Let's see if I was correct about the Hera layout. Yes, okay. So neither of the first two items in Hera were either the big key or the small key. So the logic in this seed does expect you to complete Hera and get the Moldorm Crystal by entering Misery Mire, clipping from Misery Mire to the top of Hera, actually going back through Hera to open up the big key door using the Mire big key. It's a pretty fun logical situation, but our runners usually have options for shortcuts through that logic. Usually that involves finding the hookshot somewhere and then just doing Hera Pot. But yeah, sometimes you'll find fun situations there. Zeke giving a shout out to Krithel, Glan, and Christos, our glitch tournament winners in previous years. That sign is tossed up there in a location that as you can see, mostly only glitch players would see. If I saw correctly there, it looked like Zeke skipped the floating island check. That might have been a calculated decision, just based on only having 2 hearts left, not wanting to potentially die to any of the enemies up there. But yeah, it could be a little scary if something good's on the floating island. I don't think Mr. Beyer has been to Easteth Mountain yet, so that'll be something to keep an eye on if when he eventually makes his way up there. Ooh, those red Tektites doing 2 hearts of damage on green mail. Just yeah, that's one of the risks in that little clip that you saw from Zeke. Just again using that movement with boots and movement on the same frame to sneak into diagonal walls. in that location, it's just a little time save, saves you the trouble of running around. But it does mean that you gotta be careful not to try to go all Mario on those red Tektites. Unfortunately, this game doesn't work that way. So right now, our runners are mostly just retracing each other's steps. Question in chat, do we want it to be a ped seed? Uh, yep. Chat always loves, viewers always love a ped seed. Because you get to see more of the fun mode that you enjoy. However, ped seeds, just like aga seeds, are less common the more glitches you add to the logic, just because with every higher level of glitches required, whether it's going from normal to overworld glitches, overworld to hybrid, or hybrid to no logic, with every additional set of tools we add to Link's toolkit, it reduces the number of items required for Go mode, and with regards to Agaseeds, reduces the number of possible item layouts that could require an Aghanim kill to reach the Dark World. So yes, it is very unlikely for this to be a ped seed, and it is almost impossible for this to be an aga seed, especially given that we've seen the Aghanim item and it's just 300 rupees. Chat's asking, is Desert Palace in logic? And yes, it is. The teleports that we've been seeing from both runners at this point to get up onto Desert Ledge are in logic. So here we have Zeke continuing his East Death Mountain exploration, which we saw him begin earlier, before it was interrupted by that Tektite. Was that a hookshot? Hang on. Yeah, go back there, Zeke. Let us get a better look at it. Yes, it was. Okay. So we'll be seeing from Zeke now will be an upwards teleport off of the just going into the cave to get these items first, and then probably bomb jump to get back out and pick up that hookshot. And yes, what we'll probably be seeing from Zeke in just a moment will be doing an up teleport, similar to the down teleports we've been seeing from both runners so far, to basically start walking on the clouds, and then walk over a little bit and get back inbounds to pick up that floating island item. Okay, an early Moon Pearl. In hybrid major glitches, the Moon Pearl can show up in some pretty some pretty exotic locations. Trinex is a particularly exciting one. But today it was just in Paradox Cave, so nothing too out of the ordinary. Question from chat: how do you out of logic things in HMG? And really, it just comes down to understanding what is and isn't in logic, and so things like dark rooms still aren't in logic in either overworld glitches or hybrid major glitches. Harapot isn't in logic. It's really just studying the studying the list of glitches that the developers decided would characterize the mode, I guess. And so Mr. Breyer just showed us the second example so far um, of something that you wouldn't see in overworld glitches or non-glitch modes. That was our first underworld clip. So he used a bomb to get him a little bit into the wall between Spectacle Rock and Pod. They are right next to each other in the underworld map, and so that allowed him to get into Pod in Cave State. With Cave State, you have effectively 255 small keys, so he used that to kind of get a free key to open up a door in Pod, and then he left and re-entered to change the dungeon state back to Pod state. Zeke struggling a little bit with the clip onto the floating island. He has to be pretty careful jumping around here, because if his sprite does touch the top border of the screen, then that is a hard lock, so he'd have to redo Paradox Cave things. Looks like he might be quickly loading up a reference on how to get over there. So a brief comment on Cave State. When Mr. Breyer first entered this dungeon and spent one of his 255 Cave State keys to freely open up a door in Pod, which isn't in logic, but isn't illegal. If he had continued opening chests in that state, then the big key chest that you just saw him get, that big key, because this isn't a key sanity mode, that big key gets assigned to whatever your current dungeon state is. So, and it's permanently assigned. There's no getting it back. So if he had opened that chest up without leaving and coming back, or without exiting and re-entering Pod, then Pod would have been almost unbeatable. There's one extremely difficult clip that only a few runners know, and I don't know if Mr. Breyer knows it. There, he got it. Zeke got the hook shot after a little bit of difficulty, and so Zeke stands to make up a decent chunk of time on Mr. Breyer here if Pendant Pod ends up not having anything, and Zeke ends up completely skipping it with that hookshot he got from, with that Moon Pearl and hookshot that he got from East Death Mountain, which Mr. Breyer still has yet to make his way over to. But a bit of a risky situation that Zeke is in right now is that he didn't stop off at King's Tomb to pick up that Moon Pearl, to pick up that hammer. Jet's asking, can Zeke get into GT? And yes, he absolutely can. However, without the hammer or the cane, he doesn't have access to very much in GT, so we probably won't see him head to GT. It's always fun to guess where runners will go with their current items, and my personal guess is that Zeke would head into East Death Mountain and Hookshot Cave, potentially, or East Dark Death Mountain and Hookshot Cave. It'd be a nice little branch. It would allow him to, just get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items if you include Catfish, without really leaving any orphans over there. So that would be a pretty common route to take in Zeke's situation. And Mr. Breyer heading directly to East Death Mountain. So, hot on Zeke's heels in what looks to be the progression of the seed. I don't think he found much, if anything, in Pendant Pod. Which has to be a little disappointing. And here we see Mr. Beyer approaching the floating island item from the other side. It's similar techniques, but just different edges. Oh, that was a longer jump than usual that Mr. Beyer got there. And yes, we just saw Zeke use Herapot to get to the top of Tower of Hera. That isn't in logic, so if Zeke had found any logical progression in the top of Hera, which I don't think he did, I think it was just the sword upgrade, which is nice to have, but not logical progression. If he had found logical progression there, then he would have known that whatever he found there can't block the Meyer medallion. Because clipping from Meyer is your logical access to the top of Hera in this seed. Zeke doing a quick Zora Death Mountain descent, or Zora DMD, to pick up these Waterfall Cave and Zora checks that we saw from Mr. Beyer earlier. So it's really kind of neck and neck at this point, given what each runner has checked that the other hasn't. Mr. Beyer has a bit of an advantage, I think, depending on how long Zeke takes to get to that King's Tomb hammer, and depending on whether or not Zeke decides to ever go into Pendant Pod. Here we see one of the spicier Death Mountain descents from Mr. Beyer. That was the Witch DMD, which is a little bit more difficult than some of the other ones, but it allows you to very easily get that mushroom turn-in taken care of. And here he's setting up a down teleport for to quickly get over to Sahasrara and the eastern checks, which I believe we saw. At least we saw Sahasrara, I think, from Zeke earlier. No, actually, I don't know if we saw them. Meanwhile, Zeke heading back into Hera to what I imagined this. Well, I wonder what we're about to see here. Okay, so we're about to see another kind of signature technique of this hybrid major glitches mode. That is a series of single frame inputs to set up a teleport to get him from the top of Hera to Swamp Palace. The reason this is useful is because in hybrid major glitches, the Swamp Smulky that you would normally find in the first chest in Swamp, in hybrid major glitches, it can show up in any chest in Swamp. So there's only a 10% chance of that being of you being able to access Swamp Palace normally. So usually you'll eventually need to do this clip to finish off Swamp Palace, and so might as well take care of it when it's convenient. Catching up on chat, where was Hammer? Hammer was in King's Tomb, which is Sphere 1 in overworld glitches and higher modes. So Mr. Beyer picked it up early, and it's a little bit. It'll be a little bit difficult for Zeke to make his way back to it. So here Zeke is opening up, is doing what I was talking about earlier with opening up chests in one dungeon while in another dungeon state. This is never in logic, and in this case it allowed him to get an early red mail, nice little bit of survivability. Ooh, that's That's exactly the item you would want to see the least in those first two checks, and that's kind of the risk. So I don't think there's any situation where he could make the seed unwinnable by doing what he just did. Um, but he can make the seed a lot more difficult to complete by doing what he just did. So uh, that permanently assigned the Swamp Big Key to Hera. So now Zeke has a Hera Big Key and no way, no way within this mode of ever getting a Swamp Big Key. So if Zeke wants to open up the Swamp Big Chest, then he'll need to do that by clipping again from Hera or Meyer, which is really, really inconvenient. We can effectively just say that Zeke just committed to never opening up the Swamp Big Chest. No, I'm solo coming today, not solo tracking. Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna is the one we have on tracking today. Thanks so much to him for helping out. And another question from chat from earlier: if you die in this messed up fake light world, what happens? That was probably in reference to what we were seeing from, well, I guess from either Zeke or Mr. Byer earlier, where we saw a Zora Death Mountain Descent from Zeke and a Witch Death Mountain Descent from Mr. Byer, which confuses the palettes. It tries loading the normal overworld with Death Mountain palettes, but that's different from Fake Worlds. I think I'll talk. Well, oh yeah, I guess I won't have much opportunity to talk about Fake Worlds because we found an early Moon Pearl, but we might discuss that later when we're not seeing some progression. And our second crystal on the board, first one in Logic, from... Actually, I don't know if it was in Logic because I didn't see where the Eastern Big Key was. And now here Zeke is doing the route that I was talking about earlier, of clipping up to East Dark Death Mountain to take care of Hookshot Cave, Super Bunny, and I thought Catfish, but looks like he has some other plans. Meanwhile, Mr. Byer doing a fairly uncommon teleport, getting back up after Eastern. What's he... Mr. Byer taking the damage there to free up the bottle space to get a blue potion. Now in this mode, and in Overworld glitches for that matter, using blue potions for safety is always, useful as normal. But what Mr. Byer is probably intending for that blue potion is to use it for a Overworld Yuzuhara's Bottle Adventure, or YBA, with a blue potion. If you use the potion on the same frame as you go across a screen transition, it activates the flute, and it activates the flute even if you're in the Dark World. So being able to move between flute spots even in the Dark World can have some really, really convenient routing applications. It can allow some pretty good sequence breaks if you get it before the Moon Pearl, but because they already have the Moon Pearl, it's mostly just for convenience and routing. And here, Mr. Byer is about to pick up his Tempered Sword. And Zeke takes that Fire Rod into a somewhat early Skullwoods dip, but with Red Mail, 6 Hearts, Tempered Sword, should hopefully not be a too stressful of a Skullwoods clear. Oh, and we have our... we got a map check, so we have a Pendant Mire So we saw both runners um, do. Wow, that was an interesting kind of getting caught by the wallmaster there, but caught mid bonk. That was kind of cool. A little bit of a time loss. But with Meyer as our third pendant, the fact that Hera logically requires Meyer for access um, didn't get in the way of our runners today too much, because we saw both of them sequence break that requirement through the use of Herapot. And we saw Zeke do this earlier. We'll probably see Mr. Byer do it at some point, but that was spending the Hera small key to open up the front of Swamp Palace, which, because the first chest in Swamp Palace had a big key instead of a small key, that confirms that in this seed, the Swamp Palace logically requires entering from Hera in order to complete it. There's a 90% chance of that happening, so that'll happen in almost every seed. Now we have Mr. Byer continuing on to what I assume will be a Catfish Death Mountain descent. If I remember correctly, we saw Zeke skip this earlier, though I don't remember why. Oh, I think it was just to walk back to West Dark Death Mountain for the normal Dark Death Mountain descent. And yeah, the TR medallion almost never matters very much in this mode. However, it can have some interesting implications for logic. What can be on pedestal? Well, if you're hoping for a ped seed, I think your best hope at this point would be Ice Rod. Let's take a quick look at what else is logically required to finish the seed. Potentially Meyer Medallion. Well, if Ice Rod is in Meyer. Yeah, Kane would be another thing required to finish the seed, but with Meyer as a pendant, that can't be on Ped. So yeah, pretty much Ice Rod. And that's a good reminder of another signature of glitch modes in general, but hybrid major glitches in particular. You really don't need that many items to achieve Go mode. You don't need mitts. You don't need mitts and overworld glitches either. The flippers are logically sufficient to enter Ice Palace. And you don't need Mirror to complete Swamp, because getting there from Hera isn't logic. We got our Meyer Medallion check from Mr. Byer, which again potentially added another item to our Go mode set, but with Meyer as a pendant, that is very unlikely. Only 2 items in there, and yeah, pretty unlikely for that to end up mattering. All right, here we have Zeke continuing the Village of Outcast checks and heading into probably heading into Thieves Town after this. So at this point, we're really keeping an eye out for Kane and Ice Rod. Oh, there's the mirror. So that means red crystals don't matter at all at this point, because the mirror is sufficient to access Pyramid Fairy, and Zeke just found the mitts in the brewery, which, again, probably not logically required to access anything. It really just gives you access to Smith Chain, but there are ways around that requirement, not in logic, of course. Kind of just a nice quality of life item. And there's the ice rod just on the pyramid item. So given that mirror location, that is pretty convenient to access. Looks like Mr. Buyer took the shorter way to get there, which works out well for him. So Mr. Buyer's just on a cane hunt, whereas Zeke still needs to make his way to King's Tomb to pick up his hammer, and Pyramid to pick up that ice rod. Chat's asking, is there a way to glitch into Mire without the medallion? And the answer is yes, but none that are legal in this mode. That requires either hook pushing or YBAs, both of which are only legal in no logic randomizer racing. Underworld YBAs, in case I forgot to say that. And yes, the technique that we saw from Mr. Buyer just a moment ago was clipping into the corner there to get over from the pyramid to the hammer pegs items. That, like almost every overworld clip that you've seen here, is only allowed in overworld glitches and higher modes. Basically, if you see someone sneak across a barrier in the overworld, it's probably only legal in overworld glitches and higher. Another question in chat, and thanks chat for all the questions. It it makes my job more enjoyable and easier as commentator, and always happy to explain while we're also watching the fun show that our runners are bringing us. Can Kane be in certain TR locations given the glitch levels in this mode? And the answer is yes. The logic can expect you to clip across the railing to reach the middle two entrances into TR. And that gets you access to the lava chest, the chain chomp chest, and depending on the big key location and also small key locations, potentially crystal roller as well. And yeah, Kane being in any of those locations can be particularly difficult to route in. And yeah, it can be a mimic cave as well. Yep, all you do is clip across that railing, and then you're just there. I know Zeke was talking about having some internet issues earlier this afternoon. Hopefully we can get his stream back for you in a minute. As Mr. Buyer gives us a Thieves Town clear, which will mostly resemble just a no major glitches Thieves Town clear. The only thing to keep an eye out for will be really just if the cane shows up in the big chest or blocked by the big chest, because in that case Zeke will be in a lot of trouble because before his stream cut out anyway, we saw he was in this dungeon, having still not made his way to King's Tomb to pick up that hammer. So whatever's in the big chest, Zeke will have to come back later if he wants to get it. Which dungeon clipping is allowed and which isn't? The list is pretty short. The clip you saw earlier, as Mr. Byer clipped from Spectacle Rock to Pod, that is both allowed and in logic. The clip you saw from Zeke earlier to get from the top of Hera to the Water Lever's 1 room in Swamp Palace is also allowed and in logic. The 2 other significant ones unique to this mode, one of which you probably won't see, and that's the clip from the room 2 rooms before the Meyer cutscene chest, clipping from there to the top of Hera. That is also allowed and in logic, but with Meyer being a pendant and so few items remaining for Go, chances of us seeing that are pretty slim. And the last one is in Ice Palace itself. You can use a bomb to get from the first room to a bomb or a dash clip to get from the first room to the, which room is that? The room 2 north of the Pengator room, whichever one that's called, which bypasses the Bombos or Fire Rod requirement to enter or to go past the first room of Ice Palace. It's always pretty spicy when that clip is logically required, but also it's a pretty good time save. So probably be seeing that once our runners make their way into Ice Palace. Ice Palace is really fun in this mode. The combination of that bomb clip to skip the first few rooms and Icebreaker, it really makes a go mode Ice Palace in HMG is very, very nice. It cuts out so much of that dungeon. Hopefully we get to see that. And it looks like Mr. Byer didn't find the cane in that Thieves Town big chest, so Zeke is safe from that particular pitfall. Zeke doing the dig game. Let's see what shows up here. Hopefully for his sake, the cane. Nope, just a heart. Actually, I think we saw that from Mr. Byer earlier, come to think of it. Because I know we saw Meyer and Meyer Shed. Or Meyer Medallion and Meyer Shed, so he probably did that on the way there. Meyer is the only dungeon in this mode that's not allowed to be glitched into. It's more a matter of what techniques are allowed in this mode, and the only techniques that would let you get into Meyer are the ones that aren't allowed in this mode. Those being hook pushes and underworld YBAs. Zeke getting his Meyer Medallion information. We'll see how much of the Smith Chain check Zeke does here. Imagine we'll probably see him carry the purple chest. Wait, no, he already got the mirror from Hype Cave. So 2 things that Zeke needs to do are make his way to the Pyramid Ledge item. He can take that mirror and easily link up the Pyramid Fairy checks with the Pyramid Ledge item. We'll probably see him use that as his path to that ice rod. And still needs to head to King's Tomb for that hammer, which in this seed is only needed for access to Cold Stare. With Pendant Pod, he won't need it to access the back of Pod, and the hammer is never required to access anything in Swamp. You can use clips from Harrow to Swamp to bypass that hammer gate. But having hammer does make clearing Swamp a lot more convenient. Alright, let's see what Purple Chest has. A unique item. Not the unique item Zeke was looking for. I wonder where Mr. Buyer is heading to next. Oh, he's wrapping up the front of Skullwoods. Where's Zeke heading to in this situation? Correcting his camera by entering and exiting Hera, entering the Dark World with a corrected camera, which implies, yeah, heading to Easteth Mountain. I think he already did Hookshot Cave and Super Bunny, so this may be a dip into the middle of TR for that checking for Kane and inside TR, those locations that I mentioned earlier. That could be pretty big for Zeke if he finds them here. Oh, or I'm wrong, and he's just taking this trip over to just for catfish, which we saw from Mr. Buyer earlier. Now Zeke does have the option here of walking from here all the way to Pyramid, which would get him his ice rod, which would be nice, but it would make it more difficult for... It's kind of giving up the potential advantage of if the cane does end up in Pyramid Fairy, now it's kind of just as isolated for him as it is for Mr. Buyer. That is not what we're seeing from Zeke here. We saw an attempt for a teleport. What he was attempting to do there was a down teleport on the first bump in that location, which lets you skip over to really quickly get over to Kiki. Zeke just did the first step of the other method of getting into Pod, but decided against it. He might be doubling down on his bet to skip Pod, which does look like the correct decision at this point, given that Mr. Buyer explored most of it, if not all of it, and we know didn't find much there. But Mr. Buyer is taking a lot of good access into GT. In glitch modes, the filler kind of treats GT like it would in a zero crystal fast Ganon. That is to say, it doesn't have any trash fill in GT. However, it still has the 7 crystal GT entry requirement, and really the only reason for that is because without it, if we did set this mode to allow zero crystal entry into GT, that could require walking into GT as a bunny, and we kind of don't want our Moon Pearl to show up in GT in this mode. It's pretty annoying if it does end up there. So that's why this mode is crafted that way. And now, unfortunately for Zeke, he headed in the direction of his... oh, no, that's right, he has bits. Okay. So you just clip down into Graveyard Ledge, and this is a convenient little route. Be able to link up Graveyard Ledge to King's Tomb and pick up his hammer. So if he does make his way, oh, and because he went in that direction without fixing his camera first, um, dropping down into that fairy drop down takes him to the Houlihan room. Um, that's one nice thing about glitch modes is um, getting the flippers early without gloves isn't a doesn't make it more difficult to access Houlihan. Bit of a moment of truth here coming up for Zeke. If Kane is here, that's really big, and it wasn't. This leaves him right next to his ice rod, so that's at least allows him to catch up with regards to progression. And how are we doing on dungeon item counts? Or sorry, on crystal counts? Fire is one item behind. Ooh, accidentally picked up that, or at least I assume it was an accident, picking up that pot. Just means you have the easiest bomb jump in the game, but a little bit slower than just being able to bonk. And unfortunately for Zeke here, he's heading in the direction of Pod. We'll see if he commits to the pod skip, which we know would probably work out well for him. Now on Mr. Byer's side, keep an eye on whether or not he finds the big key, because if he doesn't find the big key, then he'll have to do the right side once he does find the cane. There's the lamp. It's the right color, wrong item. And I don't think we saw the big chest check from him, so I believe that means that the big key is cane locked. It'll be a little time save for Zeke if he is able to do GT and go mode. But right now what Zeke is setting up is not quite right. Setting up a screen wrap, or first a down teleport and then a screen wrap, to very quickly get into the entrance of Eastern. You have the teleport, right? Just gotta... Okay, that works. Alright, and Mr. Byer here, I believe I looked away for just a second. One pair of eyes trying to watch two screens. I believe what we saw from Mr. Byer was setting up the same offset mirror that we saw from Zeke earlier, except a different execution and a pretty cool one. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it was successful, but I believe he was attempting to set up the offset mirror to get access to the Pyramid Fairy items. So really your question now is, where is that cane? Between our two runners, we've seen quite a bit of this seed. I wouldn't be very surprised to see Mr. Byer, or to see either of our runners really, head into Ice Palace next. It's been in Logic for a long time, and it's not that much slower without Icebreaker. But Mr. Byer doesn't appear to be heading there immediately. I wonder where he's going first. Setting up a normal Death Mountain descent. Don't actually know the name for that one. If there's a special name for it, like West DMD or something. But this technique of getting in there and doing that fun jump and then running across with a broken camera is known as, I believe the name of that is River Clip, and it allows him to quickly get into Hyrule Castle. I don't know if that's faster than just going from Link's house. If he had done it on the first try, he would have been able to link that up with the Pyramid Fairy check, but because of the save and quit, that offset mirror is gone. And I know we saw Zeke In his opener, we saw Zeke do the uncle check. I don't remember if we've seen him do the rest of the front of escape. So these could be new checks on Mr. Byers' side, but this is all uh, territory we've already seen from Mr. Byer on Zeke's side. And that big key location does confirm that this wasn't in logic until we found the lamp, but the lamp was just at the back of GT, or behind Dice Armos. Oh, so much talking on solo comms. I'm gonna take a water break. Stay hydrated, everyone, and hope you're enjoying the show. So it's always fun. Uh, one of my favorite things to do when watching randomizer races in general, and especially when both runners are kind of retracing each other's steps, is to kind of play a guessing game of where are runners going to head next. Given what they've done so far and what items they have. I think in Zeke's situation, GT, like all of those items on left side GT that we saw Mr. Byer check a few minutes ago, GT is looking really, really appealing from Zeke's perspective. Mr. Byer, I think, a little more routing efficiency earlier. Ooh, a book in Dark Cross. That's a little gross. But a little more routing efficiency earlier has allowed him to get a little bit ahead on check count. Up, obviously, whoever finds Kane first wins. Or whoever finds Kane first is certainly ahead. So from Mr. Byer's perspective, I think Ice Palace wouldn't be too surprising for Mr. Byer pretty soon. And looks like Zeke isn't going directly into GT. I wonder if this is kind of committing to, it's. I wonder if some of Zeke's thought process here might be that, I wonder if he feels somewhat late to that hammer. So I wonder if there might be a little bit of metagaming going on here of thinking, I was late to that hammer, so I'm not going to check it immediately, because if the answer is just GT, then most other runners would have done that already. So, do the checks that you think other runners probably haven't done early, which can sometimes be a pretty effective metagaming play. And if Kane is in Swamp Palace, that could pay off. Yeah, because I completely forgot thinking on Mr. Byer's side. I forgot that Zeke has already opened up the front of Swamp Palace with the Hera Smolky, and I don't think we saw that from Mr. Byer earlier. Which, as we saw from Zeke, is a bit of a process. You gotta clip to the top of Hera and clip from the top of Hera to the Water Levers 1 in Swamp. So it's a bit of an ordeal, but it's one that we know is required this seed. So that's a little bit of required progress that Zeke is ahead of Mr. Byer on. The real nightmare scenario for Zeke in this situation would be the Kane in the Swamp big chest. That's kind of because Zeke picked up the Swamp big key while in Hera state. If he wants to open up that chest, he'll have to clip here from Hera again, which is a long trip to go just for one item location. Mr. Byer picked up the shovel at some point. I didn't notice. I'm going to guess it was GT. And it's not the Kane. Zeke, meanwhile, I believe didn't do left side swamp, so we're probably about to see a bomb diver down from Zeke here. This is a pretty common play if you're one item from go to swamp the crystal. You have to finish it anyway. If your cane is here, you get to skip left side swamp with confidence. So it's a pretty common play of doing Argus first. Having a little bit of trouble setting up the bomb diver down. I think he's 1 pixel too low. Deciding, nope, it's not worth spending all this time. So doing the back of swamp without diver down. As Mr. Byer shows us, again, what we saw from Zeke earlier, clipping from the top of Hera, which again, the logic expects you to have done this from Meyer, but at some point Mr. Byer found the Meyer medallion, so he knows this is now in logic. And clipping from the top of Meyer to Swamp to spend the Hera small key, opening up the swamp front door. And because he flooded it before picking up that small key, he has to do a it's the same technique that you see in non-glitch modes, the same as the left side diver down, except turns out the same technique works on the right side as well. More tech that you only see in hybrid major glitches or higher. And Mr. Byers being careful not to open up the front chest in Swamp because he's coming right back in here after mirroring twice, because right now he's in fake light world state. Yeah, fake light world state. And your first activation of the mirror while in fake light world state changes you from fake light world to real dark world. So need to activate it again to head to the light world. And the reason for that is because he entered Swamp from the from Hera instead of from the light world. So when he exited it in Hera state, the game put him back out in the light world, but on a dark world screen. And Zeke, having not found the cane in the back of Swamp, heads right back in there to check the left side of Swamp. So a bit of a moment of truth coming up for this race, as Mr. Byer is about to show us the Swamp Big Chest, which, once again, Zeke is already committed to last locating. So if the cane is there, then Zeke's in a lot of trouble. And it is red, but it is not the cane. So Zeke doesn't have to worry about that item, fortunately. And as a reminder to why that chest is so difficult for Zeke to access, and that's because Zeke opened up the first chest in Swamp when he was here earlier in Hera state. So picking up that big key while in Hera state, after having clipped here from Hera, permanently assigned that key to Hera. So Zeke now has the Hera big key and no access to a Swamp big key. So if he wants to open up that big chest, he'll have to clip back from Hera to Swamp and then go to the middle and open up that chest while in Hera state. Chat's asking, is there a list of what glitches are allowed? And let's see, on the ALTTP Racing wiki, there's a list of glitches. And you can find that link on the main ALTTP Discord. Just the quickest rundown I can give, just on comms for what glitches are allowed in this race are, most overworld techniques, most glitches on the overworld. There's a pretty small list of things that aren't allowed, but also are extremely exotic and that you wouldn't see, and a much smaller list of glitches on the underworld that are mostly just flipping between a certain number of or a certain type of clips, mostly the movement-based clips that you've seen, dashing into the walls and then teleporting, or using bombs to get between walls and then teleporting. Those are the types of glitches that you see in hybrid major glitches that distinguish it from overworld glitches. We joke around saying, and it's true, that once you do learn overworld glitches, which there is quite a bit of a learning curve to overworld glitches. The glitch training channel on the main Discord is always happy to help out people who are interested in learning this mode. And there are great resources for learning all the required overworld glitches. That one takes a little bit of effort to learn, but once you do learn them, the list of 4 clips, one of which you're seeing from Mr. Buyer right here. Again, just a little time save, but allows you to skip the first few rooms in Ice Palace. That list of additional techniques that you need to learn to begin competing in hybrid major glitches once you know overworld glitches. It's a really short list. It takes less than an hour, I would say, to learn all of them. Where hybrid major glitches really becomes kind of challenging and interesting is all the new routing possibilities and logical item layouts that adding those that small number of clips to the logic can really create. It really creates some fascinating scenarios, which is why I love this mode so much. It's easy to learn once you've learned overworld glitches, and it just allows the randomizer to present all sorts of interesting new scenarios. So for those who like fascinating routing possibilities, as my other personal favorite mode is cross keys, and that's another mode where the randomizer can really present some fascinating puzzles and some really cool required routes. Hybrid major glitches is definitely another format for fans of that type of routing puzzle. And no Kane on Zeke's side, although, well, okay, I guess it doesn't matter much. We know that because the small key was on Cold Stare, we know that nothing blocked by the Cold Stare crystal can also block the Kane, but nothing is blocked by the Cold Stare crystal in this mode, so that doesn't really have much significance in this seed. I think it's that's more of an interesting logical tidbit in non-glitch modes for sure. All right, now I imagine we're probably seeing Zeke heading into GT. Where in the world is Arcane? Oh my goodness, is it actually in the middle of it in the middle of TR? Oh, I didn't actually see how much or whether Zeke skipped anything in ice. Yeah, if it's if the cane is in a location in ice that Zeke skipped, then yeah, Zeke's definitely in a bit of trouble if that's the case. Nope. It wasn't in Ice Tea, so if that's one of the locations Zeke skipped, then he's okay there. Oh, given the small key layout, accessing the right side chests becomes pretty inconvenient. So yeah, I guess that makes it pretty likely that there are more items on the right side. Moment of truth to see if the cane's in any of them. For anyone who's done commentary before, you can probably empathize that it's really hard to keep count of dungeon items while on comms, or maybe that's just me, but um, yeah, I'm not sure how many items Zeke left in Ice Palace, if any. Actually, does he keep track of that on his own tracker? I don't think he does, but we'll take a look. Yeah, I'd say at this point, between our two runners, we've seen most of the item locations in this seed. So that leaves some pretty exotic locations for Arcane to end up. Um, if you're looking for a kind of the fun, more glitchy answer to where the cane ends up, ooh, accidentally. Or I assume it was an accident. Going through the portal instead of going into Rando Room, so I have to make another trip back to Rando Room, and it's the big chest. Oh my goodness. Oh boy, that's a little unfortunate for Zeke. So Mr. Buyer is now in go mode, and we know that that Zeke will have to, oh boy, make his way caneless over to the vanilla big key chest in ice. To pick up the big key to get his cane off of that big chest. That is, yeah, that's pretty unfortunate for Zeke. We'll see how much more of the seed Zeke does before making his way back there. Zeke showing us a nice quick Burna Ice Armos kill. I don't know if it's quite as fast as a bow Ice Armos kill, but it is fun. Oh, and Zeke heading back into GT to open up Rando Room. Makes sense. And yeah, you really can't fault Zeke at all for making that that skip, given where the small keys did end up laid out in Ice Palace. As we saw from Mr. Buyer, that made going to the right side quite inconvenient. Zeke will be spending his last bomb on opening up Rando Room. As Mr. Buyer in go mode does a mirror wrap to very quickly get to the back of TR. That is legal in this mode, but never required in Logic. So it's mostly just a time save. Because the logic, because that isn't in Logic, that means that the key layout of the back half of TR is is as it would be if you, you know, how can I phrase this? It's a normal key layout at the back of TR. So you can't have the big key in Crystal Roller, you can't have the big key in Laser Bridge, and you can't have the big key, or you can't have any more than one small key on Laser Bridge. It's logically locked by three small keys and the big key. Um, so if Mr. Breyer was in pure, true go mode or go fast mode, whatever you want to call it, uh, then he would have been able to stop opening chests on Laser Bridge once he found the small key, because really all he needs to finish at this point is the TR big and then a GT climb. Well, going to the right side of GT to pick up his big key and then a GT climb. However, he doesn't have the silvers yet, and finding the silvers now would save more time than opening up a couple extra chests would cost. So it's not too surprising to see him pick up a couple extra chests here and there. And on Zeke's side, even though we, the audience, know that he's in quite the disadvantaged situation as far as the race is concerned, it's definitely still an interesting show to watch on his side to see just how much is he going to complete before making his way back to Ice Palace Big Chest. Because we could see some interesting stuff. We could see a dip into the middle of TR. That's probably the most item dense location I think left to Zeke that isn't cane lock. That and a Meyer dip. Although, where was the Quake medallion? At some point, Mr. Breyer picked up the Quake medallion and Zeke didn't. I wonder where it was. Oh, I wonder if that was in Pod? Ooh, if Zeke hasn't checked Pod yet, then we'll probably see that before... at least before heading back into Ice, just for the big chest. Wait, did Zeke really not do Pod yet? I don't remember. Oh, well, we're sorry, we're well past the 1 hour mark, so shout outs to both of our runners for putting on a great show for you today, showing off all sorts of fun glitches, and also shout out to Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna on tracking today. If you'd like to see more of any of this, you can give anyone and everyone a follow. What in the world just happened on Mr. I could have sworn I just saw him face up and place a block down, and then the block got placed to the left of him for some reason. It's like he's going back for a magic refill, right? Nice tempered sword, Trinix kill. And so for Mr. Breyer, where he's going to head next is pretty obvious. Just heads to right side GT for his big key, and then finishes climbing GT and killing Aga 2, wrapping up this seed. On Zeke's side, it's much more of a puzzle to wonder, where is he going to head next? Is he going to dip into Meyer potential? Or no, doesn't have that Quake wherever that ended up. Going to dip in the middle of TR. Oh, he's gonna do the books checks. That's reasonable. It's if you've got the flute, it's right. It's very, very convenient to access. And the ether tablet is just as convenient. You just clip up to Hera, fix your camera, go out, and it's right there. Even though this is obviously an unfortunate situation for Zeke, um, it's nice that we're getting to see a lot more of where items ended up in this seed, and get to see a lot more of these cool glitches. Mr. Barr showing us technique that we've seen a couple times already. Just clipping to the top of Death Mountain uh, to quickly get to the portal, and then going to the bottom of Dark Death Mountain and clipping to the top of Dark Death Mountain similarly to get into Ganon's Tower. It's one of those basic techniques of overworld glitches. What? Oh, Mr. Byer remembering that. Yes, you do need to. One of the more common mistakes of, and you know, one of the more common mistakes to keep an eye out for. You never want to head up GT without a small key. You don't want to rely on getting bailed out by the small key in one of the 3 chests at the top of GT, especially because it's quite unlikely for one to end up there. But in addition to that small key that you always want to have in your pocket while heading up there, you also want a big key. That is also important in this mode. Looks like Zeke is finishing off the rest of the front of Escape. Again, Zeke did Zeke checked the Uncle locations as part of his opener, but kind of isolated the rest of Escape a little bit by doing so. So he's just cleaning up the locations that he isolated earlier. And one of the nice things about hybrid major glitches races in general is that even though the seed has taken both of our runners on a bit of a wild goose chase, that it took Mr. Byer quite a while for heading into caneless ice to seem like the it took Mr. Byer quite a while to make it there to find his go mode. He got a pretty high item collection rate before go. Still, it's looking like he's going to finish this seed in around 90 minutes. So that's one of the nice things about getting into glitch racing, is even when the seeds are kind of at their worst, it's extremely rare to find a hybrid major glitches seed that takes over, I would say, 2 hours. Because even the situation that Zeke finds himself in now, where he's most likely going to second to last locate, or close to last locate, that Kane for his go mode. He's still well on his way to, there just isn't that much left in the world for Zeke to check. So he's still well on his way to finishing in well under 2 hours. That's what I really like about this mode. Like, even when this mode is at its worst, it's still it pales in comparison to Cross Keys at its worst. I wonder if Zeke will be able to determine if there's a dungeon item on Helma. Hopefully well, there are two things we're hoping for. One is that um, there is the map or compass on Helmasaur, and two is that Zeke keeps count of the items and chooses to skip that. And there are the silvers, and just one more item check just for good measure. I guess Mr. Briar is still in a position where Buttersword could potentially save a Ganon cycle. So worth checking the extra mini Helmasaur chest. Not really worth checking much more than that. And the fourth sword was not there. So maybe someone in chat can help me out, can keep count of whether or not Zeke finds the... Well, which will be difficult if Zeke's stream lags out. Oh, nope, there it's back. Hopefully we can see if Zeke finds both the map and compass. That'll make it a more interesting decision on whether or not to continue on to Helma. Mr. Briar showing us a quick little time save that isn't allowed in overworld glitches or lower modes, but because again it's one of those techniques where you're using movement-based tech instead of Ancilla or YBA-based shenanigans, to just get out of bounds there and clip halfway to Ice Palace. That technique is referred to for reasons I don't actually know, but that's known as the Clipe, C-L-I-P-E. I'm gonna have to ask how it got that name. But the reason that Mr. Briar does that is that for whatever reason, doing that a little bit offset like he did, or I guess getting a little bit out of bounds, scrolling the camera a little bit, interrupts the Ganon revival cutscene, and it just gets you to Ganon a little bit faster. You do have to be careful to stop it early enough, because if you don't, then it lands you in Ice Palace, and you have to you have to climb GT again. But yeah, nice little time save, and Mr. Briar with a very efficient Ganon fight is just about done. Has to cross the bridge and is finished with an official race time of 1 hour 33 minutes and 5 seconds. So get your GGs in chat to Mr. Briar, and also get your GGs in chat to Zeke, who I should mention has forfeited in the race time room. So GGs to both of our runners for giving us a fantastic show today. We'll see if we can get one and or both of them in here with me for a quick interview. And yeah, Zeke, after forfeiting, has been informed in the race room about where that cane ended up, and And it looks like we are joined on air by Zeke. Welcome to the booth, Zeke and Gigi.
GG. I've already learned where my missing go mode is, thanks to Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna in the race room.
Yep. So you actually cleared Ice Palace a few minutes before Mr. Byer, and so I think you would have been in a pretty good position. And we're joined in the booth by Mr. Byer, Gigi, and welcome, Mr. Byer.
Hello, GG's.
Hello. So I was just telling Zeke that that Zeke was in Ice Palace checking those items when both of you were in Kane Go mode, and Zeke was in there a little bit earlier. I don't remember if he was ahead or behind on dungeon count.
That was my 6th crystal, so...
Okay. Hey. So yeah, if Kane had been in one of the chests that you checked on your way to Cold Stare, then yeah, it would have been very, very close between you two. It was really interesting. It was kind of cool seeing the back and forth and different routing decisions. Unfortunately, that decision to leave. And Zeke, were you keeping count of items? Do you know how many items you left in ice? Because it seems like it was only one or just one.
I left one.
Man.
I made the gamble that it was going to be... I knew that it was the Cane locked ice after I finished, because it was a small key on Cold Stare. And that's what actually prompted me to leave ice to look for it elsewhere.
Yeah, does that... Like, I'm curious about that gamble. Like, obviously we all learned in our early rando training days that yep, small key on Cold Stare means that Cold Stare's prize is Cane locked. But I wonder, like, does that have much significance in glitch modes and in HMG specifically? Because I don't think there are many situations where it does.
It doesn't have that many situations. It was a gamble that the Cane was elsewhere and not on the one item in ice because of that.
Oh yeah. Totally understandable gamble. Just yep, that was unfortunate on this one. Another potentially unfortunate Cane location would have been the Swamp Big Chest. Zeke, did you have any? What were your thoughts about that?
My plan was, if I was missing Cane after finishing Pod, I was going to go in there and get the big chest next, and then head toward ice from there. Because I can easily run over from the swamp. But I was going to do it after Pod.
Maybe after I forget, did you ever check the middle of TR?
No, one of my rules is I last locate Cane in TR.
Very, very fair. Very fair. So, Mr. Byer, what were your thoughts on this seed?
Okay, I was both relieved and kind of annoyed about the Cane and Ice. A, because it's a dumb location, but I was also relieved because I missed IPVJ, so it was looking like I would have to do it the vanilla way, but thankfully I didn't have to.
Oh yeah, and, it would have been a full vanilla ice. Oof.
But like by the time I was coming up to it, I kind of figured it was in there, because Tam already finished and all the other locations were kind of garbage.
Oh yeah, I should give
not jet seed locations, or like yeah.
I mean, I'm used to Tam getting to 108. So.
Yeah, that too.
I should mention for our audience the general race results. We had Tam come in at first with a very impressive time given this seed's item layout with a 108. Then second was Flip Heel, third MM2 NES cartridge, and fourth our restream winner, Mr. Byer.
And of course, my rule is if I'm the last runner on Restream, I just hit that forfeit button immediately, unless I am like on Gammon.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad you were able to at least tell us your thought process behind what you were planning on doing next if the race had continued.
I'd had a plan for how to look for it. It's just I was focusing more lucrative locations.
Mm-hmm.
And since it happened, yes, I had to look up how to get onto floating islands with flippers. I have never had flippers making that clip.
Oh. With flippers?
With flippers.
Oh.
Yep. We saw that on the restream, and it was. It seemed like you looked it up fairly quickly. Do you have like a bookmark that you refer to? Or...
I had to go find the map again from over in the glitched server.
Oh, I had to do a little searching. Well,
I switched computers last month, and I don't have my bookmark list anymore.
Oh yeah, I was also kind of annoyed by all the item placements throughout the seed, because it kind of felt like I was last location them, even though I technically wasn't. But like, I had all these routes planned in my head, but like the items I needed to go through with it came at like the very end, or like the worst possible opportunity. Like I got Pearl late, I got a bottle late, which I kind of need for my route. And then I got mitts immediately after I did my Darkwood loop, which, like, that route is specifically to skip the mitts, so it was kind of pointless.
Mm.
And then the cane, yeah.
Does any glitch runner like finding the mitts?
No, not really.
No.
I like mitts if I have early Moon Pearl. Or if I don't have early Moon Pearl, because that gives you the fun option of Moon Pearl and Ice Palace. But
and Mr. Meyer, do you remember where the where Quake ended up?
Quake was Spike Cave.
Spike Cave. Oh, okay.
Okay, I'd actually written Spike Cave off as existing in my mind, so I'm glad that nothing was in Meyer then.
Yeah. Because it was definitely interesting from a viewer perspective, seeing both of you spend the Hera small key in Swamp while Hera Basement was still available. I lost
Hera
count of
Basement
items.
wasn't available.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a half magic and sword. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
that was
that totally makes sense then.
No, that was we had the items, and so the key is suddenly a Swamp Palace small key. It's like magic.
Yeah.
And
I also skipped left side Swamp because I was counting on Swamp being cane locked because of Meyer and key. I didn't actually enter Meyer, but I was counting on the key logic making Swamp cane lock. And if I had to go back there, I would have gone back there after Meyer.
Is it possible for Swamp to be cane locked?
Yes,
based
if
on
small.
keys?
If the key's on Biddy.
If there's a key on Vitreous, then Swamp is cane locked. I've made that gamble before.
Because you need the cane to get the small key from Biddy, and you need all three small keys logically to do Swamp.
Do you need small? Okay.
The logic still expects you to open both Fishbone Room door and the other key door that's not the Rupee Room in the basement.
That's right. It
just expects us to actually be smart and not go to Rupee Room, which how many runners would actually know what the Rupee Room is?
Yep. Yeah.
The siege just felt like a lot of missed opportunities. Because also, like, Meyer was green pendant, so like, the Meyer dupe was potentially an option, but it was pointless in this case because it was Kane Go mode, and it's not gonna be there.
Yeah.
So I was like, how am I supposed to do cool stuff this seed if it's screwing me up at every turn?
Now, Mr. Meyer, were you feeling ahead somewhat when you found that hammer in Kingsdoom? Because you were quite early to that, I think.
A little bit. I think that oh, there was something. I think that pushed me to pod a little earlier. But
And then Pod ended up having basically nothing.
GG, Mr. Buyer. I am going to wrap it up here for me. So thanks for the restream, everybody. My apologies for the internet quality.
Yep,
well,
GG's.
Still put on a very good show, and I guess I can start wrapping us up as well. So, Mr. Buyer, thanks again to Zeke and Mr. Buyer. Any last comments before we wrap this up?
Oh, thanks for restreaming. Put more glitch modes on SG, please.
Please.
Yeah.
I will give Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna the thankful shout out for being the tracker. This mode's fun to track.
Yep, and Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna did a fantastic job on tracking, and this was a really fun one to watch and do commentary for. So thanks to you both for running. Thanks again to Scruff for tracking, and thanks to the viewers who kept asking very insightful and interesting questions in chat. It definitely made this more fun to do commentary for. So once again, thanks so much to everyone, and I've been here for you on comms. I've been Krellbell, and have a good night, and a happy Valentine's Day for those who celebrate. Thanks everyone. Goodbye.